Walters is back for another season as the official bar of the Nats Chat podcast. They've been with us since our very first season on air in 2021. Walters is located just across the street from the ballpark.
Insurance isn't a one-size-fits-all, and shopping for it shouldn't feel like squeezing into something that just doesn't fit. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they show you options that fit your budget. Enough hunting for discounts, trying to calculate rates, and tinkering with coverages. Maybe you're picking out your very first policy. Or maybe you're just looking for something that works better for you and your family. Either way, they make it simple for you to see your options. No guesswork, no surprises. Ready to see how easy and fun shopping for car insurance can be? Visit Progressive.com and give the Name Your Price tool a try. Take the stress out of shopping and find coverage that fits your life on your terms. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
So Lee standing in. Cavalli will work out of the stretch. Here's the pitch. Swinging a tapper back. First base side of the mound. Cavalli can't make the play. He knocked it down with his glove and it rolled into foul ground. All hands are safe. Martin scores, and the Twins lead 3-1. He kicks and delivers, and a swing and a fly ball right center field toward the gap. Young and one on the run, and no one's going to get there. It's in for the base hit. It goes to the fence. 1 run is scored. It's going to score 2. And the Twins have brought them all around. 4 runs home in the inning. It's now Minnesota 6 and Washington 1.
Lost the zone a little bit there. When he was in the zone, I just felt like they were all over him.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. Nobody denies the talent of Nats starting pitcher Cade Cavalli. What's missing is the consistency. And we on Tuesday evening saw the lack of consistency pop up again. 6 runs, 3 earned in 4 innings. This off back-to-back 10 strikeout outings. We lately have seen the best of Cavalli and also the worst of Cavalli. Tuesday evening, a Nats blowout loss, an 11-3 loss to the Minnesota Twins at Nationals Park in Game 1 of a 3-game series. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season fall to 16-20, just 4-13 at home versus 12-7 on the road. And the 4-13 includes the Nats being just 1-5 in Game 1s of series at home. The Nats have been especially bad at getting off to good starts in home series. But good to have you with us. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. And we have a website that we invite you to check out, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. We have been discussing the Nats' surging offense calming down. The Nats now have scored 3 runs or less in 7 of the team's last 11 games. But Mark, off what we had seen recently from Cade Cavalli to see what we saw on Tuesday evening, disappointing for sure. Disappointing, I'm sure, for him. But we did not see the Cavalli who we had seen over his 2 previous outings.
No, this was a huge disappointment, and yet it started off really well. He retired the first 5 batters he faced in this game on a total of 11 pitches. They were swinging early. He was getting quick outs, and you thought to yourself, hey, he could be back on track for another one of these kind of dominant performances. And then there's a little bit of bad luck in there. There was a hit by pitch. It was a ball that actually bounced in the dirt and then caught the hitter. There's a little bit of a weak single Then he gives up a hard double, so you give up the 2 runs there, but he gets through that, comes back for the 4th, and there's 2 ground balls that had an exit velocity of 66 miles an hour. Neither of them turned into an out. Now, one of them is an error on Cavalli. It was kind of a tough play where he's thinking of trying to get the out at the plate.
Here's the pitch. Swinging a tapper back. First base side of the mound. Cavalli can't make the play. He knocked it down with his glove and it rolled into foul ground. All hands are safe.
And then a couple of walks. I think the biggest difference in this game from the previous ones, 4 walks. He only had 1, I think, over his last 2 games total. And yes, there's some bad luck. And if things go a little differently, this might have been different, but he had opportunities to get through it. And that 4th inning was just torturous. 40 pitches, 4 runs score, and Blake Butera decided to pull the plug right there.
Yeah, and Cavalli just 2 strikeouts in this game, too. A number of instances in which he had a guy down or at least with 2 strikes, and Cavalli unable to put the guy away. So he was coming off the 2 consecutive 10 strikeout outings. 7-2 loss to the Atlanta Braves at Nationals Park on April 23rd. 2 runs, 5 innings, 10 strikeouts, no walks. 14-2 win at the New York Mets last Wednesday night, April 29th. 2 runs, 6 innings, 10 strikeouts. But Cavalli on Tuesday evening, 6 runs, 3 earned, 4 innings. He gave up 5 hits, which were 2 doubles and 3 singles, issued 3 walks and a hit by pitch, recorded just 2 strikeouts, 76 pitches, 48 strikes, 28 balls, and he committed a key fielding error. Like Mark said, Cavalli did get BABIP to a degree, that's true, but he also failed to get some big outs. So top of the second, he allowed 2 runs on a 2-out hit by pitch of Cody Clemens, a 2-out swinging bunt single by Luke Keschall to the left side of the infield on an 0-2 pitch, and a 2-out first pitch, 2-run double by Brooks Lee to the right field corner for a 2-1 Twins lead. So, the single by Keschall, unfortunate. The hit by pitch, unfortunate. But he gives up a 2-out first pitch, 2-run double by Brooks Lee. And then Cavalli unraveled in that top of the 4th. 4 runs, 1 earned on a whopping 40 pitches. Gave up a weak leadoff opposite field single by Austin Martin through the right side of the infield. But then came the walks. A 5-pitch walk of Cody Clemens. A 10-pitch walk of Luke Keschall. Then came the error. First pitch run-scoring fielding error on a fielder's choice grounder by Brooks Lee. Back to Cavalli for a 3-1 Twins lead. Like Mark said, tough play, but Cavalli did get charged with an error. Cavalli gave up an opposite field RBI sac fly by Royce Lewis to the right field warning track for a 4-1 Twins lead. That was a rather loud out. And Cavalli gave up a 2-out, 2-run double by Trevor Larnach to the right center field gap on an 0-2 pitch for a 6-1 Twins lead. That really stood out. You have Larnach down 0-2. You end up giving up a 2-out, 2-run double. And Cavalli issued a 2-out, 8-pitch walk of Ryan Jeffers, despite having had him down in the count at 1.02. So, like I said, we saw the best of Cavalli the 2 previous outings. In a lot of ways, we saw the worst of Cavalli in this game. He is reminding me a lot of Mackenzie Gore from a standpoint of the highs are high, but the lows are low. There is this extreme pitch inefficiency. Cavalli now, over 8 games all starts, is averaging 18.78 pitches per inning. And you look at him and you say, man, there's so much to like, but it's just a matter of consistency. And Cavalli right now is inconsistent.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. And I don't think we should be shocked by this. Let's remember 10 starts last year, 1 prior to that point before he got hurt. And now this is number 7 on the year. So this is still a guy with fewer than 20 big league starts. We think of him as more experienced than he really is because he's been around. We've been hearing about him and seen him for so long, but we haven't actually seen him pitch that much because of the injuries. So I think you have to understand there are some growing pains. You would love for these nights when he's not as sharp as he was the last 2, for him to still be able to find a way to get through it without the damage. It felt to me like, number one, he wasn't putting guys away the way that he did in those previous 2 starts. That led to all the strikeouts. And as you said, 2 strikes on a lot of these guys, couldn't finish them off, couldn't put them away. But then also, as that 4th inning progressed and it kept going on, you could see he was just not sharp at all. And there were really uncompetitive pitches that he's throwing up there. So you can understand why some of the walks happen, some of the long at-bats, and obviously the high pitch count physically. And I think this is probably what Blake Butera and Simon Matthews are seeing from the dugout. I think they're probably concerned that he had to work so hard and he was kind of losing that command, which had been so good for him the last really 3 starts, throwing tons of strikes, that they felt like this isn't worth trying to push any further. Let's pull him after the 4th inning. So you do wonder about like the stamina issue. And when an inning starts to go south on him, the fact that he couldn't get it back and just end it already to give him a chance to continue in the game. But again, I think you do have to, acknowledge he's still kind of new at this. He's still learning at the big league level. And these are the kind of starts sometimes you're going to have to experience because of that. The hope would be next time out, he's back to that previous form. As much as we want him to like take off and just stay there for the rest of the year, I think it would be naive to think that he's going to do that at this point.
40 pitches in that top of the 4th. There is such a thing as you pull a guy because the pitch count is so high, you're worried about the health. And he was flirting with that number in that inning. And when he issued that 2-out, 8-pitch walk of Jeffers, I'm saying to myself, like, I wonder if you just yank him now, just from the standpoint of, what if he gets to like 50, 55 pitches? Like, you don't want that in that inning. That was dangerous, what was going on in that inning, not just from a standpoint of the runs given up, but from the pitch count that he accumulated.
Yeah, I think that was going to be his last batter, Josh Bell. He struck him out. You had Paxton Schultz already warming in the bullpen. My guess is that would have been the last batter. If Bell reaches, they would have pulled him. I think 40 is kind of that number where once you get past that, you're like, we're not going to go any further if at all possible. You might let him finish in that bat, but you don't let him go, especially somebody with his kind of, injury track record and that. So yeah, I think that's really what it was. And again, it's not just that he threw those 40 pitches, but you could see as that inning went on, he just wasn't the same guy, was not nearly as sharp at the end of that inning as he was earlier on. So it's a step back for him, sure. The key is this a one-time step back or does this turn into anything worse? Beyond this, we'll have to see next time out. I like your comparison to Mackenzie Gore because I think there are some similarities there. You watch them and you can say undeniably they've got great stuff and they have the ability to dominate any particular time they take the mound. But what's going to determine whether or not they really reach their full potential and become a frontline big league starter is can they do it start in and start out? And as we always talked about with Gore, on the nights when you don't have it, because you're not going to have it every time out there, can you still find a way to get through it with minimal damage? That was often Gore's problem. And we see that might be Cavalli's problem at this point.
Cavalli has a fascinating statistical profile, too. So 8 games all starts. The ERA is at 4.15. The whip is at 1.70. We've said this before, but he's lucky the ERA isn't higher given how high the whip is. The strikeout rate is quite good, 10.38 strikeouts per 9 innings. The pitches per inning is very high, as mentioned, 18.78. And the lack of innings is something. He has 8 starts, just 34 and 2/3 innings. He, at that rate, if he made 32 starts, which is a lot of starts, would total 139 innings. I wonder what the record is for, let's say, 30 starts, fewest innings in a regular season. Whatever that record is, he's tracking toward perhaps challenging that mark. That really is something that, he's healthy, which is good, and he's making his starts, which is good. But man, he is not eating innings to any extent. And that, of course, is a function of the pitch count. He's just throwing a ton of pitches.
Right. I think it's a combination of the pitch count and the team being particularly cautious with him given his inexperience and significant injury history. I think if he's been around longer, if he never had the arm issues that he had, you might let him go a little further. There have even been some games where he's pitched kind of well and they pulled him maybe a little bit sooner than you would have thought, in a perfect world. I would imagine that's going to continue. You would hope that as the season plays out, and provided that he does stay healthy and is showing that he can withstand the rigors of the long season, that they do pull back on the leash some and let him go a little further. But it's also incumbent upon him to be efficient enough to be able to give you consistently 6+ innings. And aside from a few starts, we just have not seen that from him. So those last few, really the last 3 starts we talked about, his strike throwing was fantastic. Now, he lost that in this one. So I really want to see how that goes from here. He has, through most of his professional career, been a strike thrower. Now, maybe that leads to some long at-bats, a lot of foul balls we saw in a few games. But for the most part, he's not somebody that just, walks the other team like crazy and drives up the pitch count. So I want to believe that this one is an anomaly there, but let's see how he does the next time out.
Al Galdi here to tell you about Window Nation's Buy 4, Get 4 free sale. But before that, the Window Nation look into the future.
Weisenberger fires. Ground ball in between first and second. It's into right field. Ford's getting the wave home. Pache's throw is into second base. And Ford scores on the RBI single from Andres Chaparro.
Window Nation has a great offer for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast, the Buy 4, Get 4 free sale, during which you could replace all of your home's windows and get half of them for free. Plus, you can get your windows with no money down and no payments or interest for 2 years. The sale ends soon, so call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com now to book a consultation. 866-99-WINDOW-NATION or windownation.com to book a consultation, and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
We've all been there. You're away for the weekend. The big game is on, and you realize you're restricted from watching. Or maybe you're trying to check the latest lines on your betting app, but your local network is blocking the site. These are the ultimate unforced errors. You can prevent this from happening to you with IPVanish. IPVanish is the powerhouse VPN designed to keep you in the game no matter where you are. IPVanish helps you stay connected to your favorite team and streaming services while you travel. But it's not just about watching the game. For the bettors out there, IPVanish provides an extra layer of security and privacy that helps you access your account safely on public Wi-Fi. Plus, IPVanish is lightning fast, so you won't have to worry about lag during those crucial live betting moments. Right now, get a massive discount at IPVanish.com. That's IPVANISH.com to get started today. Secure your play and go to IPVanish.com.
The 2-2. Swing, it's poked over the leaping third baseman Bibas, a base hit down the left field line. That'll score Clemens. Lile trying to pick it up in the corner. He does. Over to third goes Keyshaw, and in at second with a double is Lee. So the Twins tack on another. It's 11-3. Lee has his second double of the night, his third hit, and third run batted in.
Well, the Nats relief pitching in this 11-3 loss to the Twins at Nationals Park on Tuesday evening was bad. You know, the relief pitching lately has been better, but Tuesday evening definitely a step back. 3 Nats relievers combined to allow 5 runs in 5 innings. Now, Paxton Schultz was good. He tossed 2 scoreless and hitless innings, but Andre Granillo allowed 4 runs in 2 innings. He, in the top of the 8th, gave up a first pitch 3-run homer by Byron Buxton to left field for a 10-3 Twins lead. Granillo now in this regular season, 8 games, 9 into third innings, 10 earned runs, ERA 9.64, whip 2.25. And sure enough, the Nats late night on Tuesday night announced having optioned Granillo to AAA-Rochester, and Orlando Revolta allowed 1 run in 1 inning. Top of the 9th, he allowed a run on 2 walks and a double, all with 1 out. Also, regarding Nats relief pitching, the Nats on Tuesday night, this was during the game, in fact, announced officially the signing of free agent reliever Max Kranick, a 1-year major league contract, club option for the 2027 season. But the Nats, in announcing the signing, also announced having put him on the 15-day injured list due to recovery from right elbow surgery. Kranick underwent Tommy John surgery on his right elbow June 2022 and underwent right flexor tendon surgery in July 2025. And off the comments of Nats manager Blake Butera during his postgame press conference, sounds like we will not be seeing Max Kranick at the major league level for a while.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things, and excited to add another arm to the order.
Yeah, Butera said he doesn't really know the timeline, but he feels like it's probably at least a month away at this point. So I think that's why you saw a little bit of an unconventional move here. They signed him to a major league contract and gave him a team option for next year. And that's the kind of thing you do when you sign an injured player, particularly a pitcher who you're not sure how much you're going to get out of him this year, but you do believe that once healthy, he could be somebody of value to you. So if he does come back at some point this year, even if he doesn't, but they have reason to believe that he's on the right track and that he could be somewhat productive for them in the future, you could see them picking up that option. I don't know financial terms yet. I haven't been able to find that out. I can't imagine it's that much that they're giving him. But he did have success for the Mets last year before suffering the injury. There was fear at the time that he was going to need his second Tommy John surgery. Turns out he just had the flexor tendon, so that's a little sigh of relief there. But you're talking, we're up to about 10 months since he had that surgery. So you can tell this wasn't nothing, and he's still working his way back from that. So it's a little bit of a roll of the dice, but clearly they felt like they had seen enough there to believe that whether it's later this year or even next year, this is somebody who could help them out.
And obviously, when it comes to this season, once he's healthy, he would be pitching in the minors on a rehab assignment, presumably a fairly lengthy rehab assignment, I would think anyway, before he would be brought up to the majors to pitch, right?
Yeah, you would think so. You miss that much time, you're allowed a full month on rehab. He may, and I apologize for not knowing this, he may also have options. He hasn't been in the big leagues that much. So even once healthy, he may be somebody they can option to AAA. And this isn't a short-term fix kind of move. This is somebody they think could help them, further down the road, whether it's this year or next. So even though Granillo now goes back to AAA, we're still waiting to find out on Wednesday what the corresponding move is, but it has nothing to do with the Kranick signing. They'll bring up somebody else as this kind of constant revolving door merry-go-round with their bullpen goes on, and you just hope they can find some guys who fit in and give them what they need on a particular given day.
Yeah, round and round the bullpen merry-go-round goes. And by the way, the corresponding roster move to the Nats signing Max Kranick was them on Tuesday night announcing having designated reliever Jackson Rutledge for assignment. And, that's notable, but it's also not surprising. And that is not surprising is notable. This was done to clear a spot on the 40-man roster. But, of course, Jackson Rutledge, a guy who the Nats took with a first-round pick, number 17 overall pick in the 2019 MLB first-year player draft. The Nats took him out of San Jacinto College, a public community college in Texas. We've talked about Rutledge plenty of times, just has not worked out. Failed as a starter, now in a lot of ways failing as a reliever. He's not necessarily done with the Nats organization. It'll be interesting to see, what comes of him being DFA'd, but the fact that he has been DFA'd says a lot about where he's at.
Yeah, probably had to figure this was coming at some point. The previous administration had exhausted all their opportunities with him as a starter. They gave him one last shot as a reliever. He was actually on the big league roster almost the entire season last year, even though the performance didn't really suggest that he should have remained in the big leagues. He comes to spring training this year. I think they were actually impressed with some of what they saw from him. He came up briefly. I think it was only one game. It did not go well. They sent him back down. I think it's obvious here that this is someone who was drafted and developed by the previous administration. The new administration comes in. You take a look at him. You see if he might fit in, and they pretty clearly decided he does not. And just add it to the list of first-round picks that not only just didn't really work out, but really didn't work out. And I'm not saying that he was ever supposed to be a top frontline prospect. You said he was 17th overall. I don't think they said this is a future ace, but it really never happened for him. There were some injuries early on, but really it was performance. It wasn't about anything else. And he got his opportunities, and he just did not do enough with it to suggest that there was hope in the long run. Now, maybe whether it's still with the Nats at AAA or if he ends up going somewhere else, maybe somebody else can tap into whatever he has. But it's unfortunate, and add him to the list. There's a lot of them, as we've talked about, over the second half of the 2010s that just did not pan out at all for this organization.
I mean, it is a murderer's row of whiffs of first-round picks. 2014 starting pitcher Eric Fetty, 2016 shortstop / second baseman Carter Kieboom, There also was starting pitcher Dane Dunning, although at least you were able to trade him. 2017, starting pitcher Seth Romero. 2018, starting pitcher Mason Denneberg. 2019, starting pitcher Jackson Rutledge. 2020, starting pitcher Cade Cavalli. We'll see what happens with Cavalli, but I mean, man, Fedde, Keyboom, Romero, Denneberg, Rutledge. I mean, whiff after whiff after whiff. That is why the Nats are where they are, as we have talked about plenty of times.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Baseball fans know every pitch can change a game. Playoff hockey is just as intense. Every shift, every second matters. NHL on TNT has the best coverage, with stars like Paul Bissonnette bringing laughs and Wayne Gretzky breaking down the action. The studio crew makes every game feel bigger, just like a big Nationals win. Playoff hockey is unpredictable, physical, and full of overtime drama. If you love sports, you'll love the energy. Watch the Stanley Cup playoffs on TNT, TBS, truTV, and HBO Max.
Pitch swung on, driven in the air to left field. That's over the left fielder's head and hits the top of the fence and stays in play. Tana will score, Wood into second. We'll see if the Nationals ask for this to be reviewed, because I think it hit the top of the fence and then caromed off the railing or the flower bed behind it. We'll see. Here comes Blake Return out of the dugout now to talk to home plate umpire Mark Wegner. Either way, Tana has scored, and for the moment, it's now the Twins 7 and the Nationals 3.
So the Nats offense, as I mentioned, 3 runs or less now in 7 of the team's last 11 games. The Nats on Tuesday evening, just 3 runs, just 6 hits, though 4 were extra base hits. The Nets had 4 doubles and 2 singles, worked 3 walks, but went just 2 for 11 with runners in scoring position and struck out 10 times. The Nats' 6 hits came from the team's numbers 1 through 3 batters and number 8 batter. Talking about James Wood, Daylen Lile, Curtis Mead, and Jose Tena. James Wood, an extra base hit in this game. Very good to see that. Wood is the Nats starting right fielder and number 1 batter, 1 for 4, RBI double. Wood in the Nats 1-run 7th went out opposite field RBI double off the top of the left field wall to cut the Nats deficit to 7-3. The play was reviewed via a crew chief review, was maintained as a double as opposed to being ruled a homer. But the double had a game best exit velocity of 111.9 miles per hour per StatCast. And Wood really has cooled off lately. We haven't talked too much about it just because, Wood's going to be up and down. Like, you can't expect supreme excellence every game of every season. But to see that opposite field power there was good. That RBI double was just his 2nd extra base hit over his last 10 games. He actually had cooled off quite a bit over these last 10 games.
It's now a 10-game homerless streak for him. He hit his 9th homer in game 27, and that was 1 every 3 games. That's a 54 homer pace over a whole season, and he hasn't hit one again since then. Now, that one in this game in the 7th inning, it was inches away from clearing the fence. He also hit a ball really well to deep left field in his 2nd at-bat. So if nothing else from this game, he at least showed that sign of really good hard contact to the opposite field like we know from him. Hopefully that will carry over. He, though, for the better part of a week plus, has kind of fallen back into where he was early in the season before he got red hot again. As you said, this is a guy who we know is going to be streaky. You hope that the bad streaks are minimized, the good streaks are sustainable. But it's kind of a nature, I think, of the kind of hitter that he is and the size that he has and the swing that he takes, that it is probably going to be subject to a good amount of slumps and hot streaks. Hopefully those 2 drives in this game were the sign that he's figured something out and is going to be back on track again.
Such an interesting slash line for James Wood. His batting average is just .232, but his on-base percentage is .380. His slugging percentage is .507. People talk about a 300, 400, 500 slash line. What about a 200, 400, 500 slash line? James Wood is capable of providing that, no doubt. But nice to see him have the double in this game. Daylen Lile is interesting statistically. So he is the Nats starting left fielder and number 2 batter, 1 for 3 with a double and a walk. His OPS is just 692, but did you know Lile is tied with shortstop CJ Abrams for the team lead in hits at 35. Lyle's OPS is in the 600s, but Lile actually has 35 hits. That's kind of odd.
Yeah, I think he hasn't hit for the power that we saw from him last year. He doesn't have a triple yet, right? After all the triples last season, and as amazing as that was, he's still looking for his first one this year. So he has not hit for the power, but he is getting hits. I think there's less concern with him because he does still hit the ball hard. As you said, he is recording hits. I think the idea is he's going to be all right. Remember last year, it took him a little while to get going from that power standpoint. Once he did, he just took off, and it was remarkable. So I'm not as concerned about him. Yes, you'd like to see that show up here at some point, but he's not just going up there and swinging wildly and whiffing at everything. I think he's just not hitting the ball quite with the same authority that we saw for the second half of last year. Give it a little more time, and hopefully that starts to come together. But, I mean, boy, you look at their lineup right now. We've been talking about it. It's like Wood and Abrams. After that, Curtis Mead is in the upper 700s. He's not an everyday player. Lyle, as you said, 692. Jose Tena at 768. And then it's a lot of 500s and 600s. Like, there's really very little depth to this lineup. And above all else, there is no right-handed production at all. And that's why you see guys like Curtis Mead and Jacob Young hitting in prominent spots in the lineup, 3rd and 5th. They're trying to break up the lefties because they don't want the opponents just to match up with them late in games. They desperately need somebody from the right side of the plate to start producing for them because they're getting very little from those guys. There's no doubt about it. Mead in this game, another good game for him. He is the Nats starting first baseman, number 3 batter, 2 for 4, double, RBI single. You mentioned his OPS, 785. Jose Tena, he is the Nats starting DH and number 8 batter, 2 for 3, double, single, walk. He's got an OPS of 768, but there's no doubt. I mean, Cade Ruiz, all right? So he in this game as the Nats starting catcher and number 9 batter, 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts, grounded into a double play to end the game. His OPS is down to 506. Nasim Nunez, for all of the good things that we talk about with him, he is the Nats starting second baseman and number 7 batter, 0 for 3 with a walk. His OPS, 547. Jacob Young, who for a while was hitting, he is the Nats starting center fielder and number 5 batter, 0 for 4. His OPS, 581. A lot of regulars have OPSs in the 500s. 600s is bad. 500s is really bad. I didn't mention Luis Garcia Jr. He's out with this right wrist ailment. His OPS is 595. The Nats' other regular catcher, Drew Millis, his OPS is 405, which is like microscopic. I really do wonder, at what point do you bring up Riley Adams with how poorly Millis has played so far? Not that Adams sets the world on fire, but geez, an OPS of 405? That is bad. It's frightening to think James Wood, CJ Abrams, if God forbid one of them gets injured, this offense is in a lot of trouble because there is a real lack of depth with this attack. I don't even want to think about what would happen if either of those guys was. The fact that Garcia, and he's going to be fine within a couple of days, but the fact that they're missing him right now, and that actually feels like a significant loss, tells you where things are right now, that a guy with a sub 600 OPS actually feels like that significant of a loss. I know we talk about the catchers a lot. I want to talk about Cade Ruiz here for a little bit. There were 4 bad at-bats from him in this game. 2 strikeouts, 2 groundouts, and I know the game's already basically over at this point, but his last at-bat, the last at-bat of the game, they're trailing a bunch in the 9th. I get it. Tena draws a walk, 1 out in the 9th. Ruiz hits into a double play on the very first pitch. And that's such a telling sign of who he is. And I think the previous at bat strikes out on 3 pitches, the last of which bounced in front of the plate. He is lost up there. This is not ramifications of the concussions from last year. He is healthy by all accounts. This is who he has been both before the injury and now after it. And I think we've said this, if Harry Ford, or I guess even Riley Adams, but especially if Harry Ford was doing anything of consequence at AAA, I think we would have seen him by now, but he's not. And you don't rush a prospect who you actually believe in before they're truly ready for it because of the lack of production from the guys in the big leagues. And that's hard to accept, I know, but that's going to be the case. Until Harry Ford shows something that says he's ready for this, they are not going to make that move. But in the meantime, it's really, really rough watching what they're getting. You know, Millis, I understand it's bad, but he was never supposed to be that guy to begin with. Keibert Ruiz, at this point in his career, hasn't come anywhere close to being what he's supposed to be from an offensive standpoint. And whatever defensive progress he's made, I don't think you can justify and say that's good enough to make up for the complete lack of offense they've seen from him.
Riley Adams has an OPS for AAA-Rochester in the low 700s. He's not setting the world on fire, but why isn't he up and either Millis or Ruiz is down or benched? I don't get this. Why do we have to deal with Ruiz and Millis as the catching tandem?
I think it's probably a combination of Adams no longer being on the 40-man roster, so you'd have to clear a spot with somebody else. And not to say there isn't somebody they could move, but if you believed that he was a long-term solution, maybe, but are you going to remove somebody else from the 40-man just to clear a spot for him for what's probably going to be a short-term thing that's not a true fix? And I'm guessing he is someone that the new administration has looked at and acknowledges he's not part of the long-term plan here. The fact that they removed him from the 40-man roster over the winter tells you all you need to know about that. So I get it. Maybe it would be better than what we've seen. Although, let's be clear, Riley Adams, when given the chance to play in the big leagues, has not taken the ball and run with it himself. So there's that. My guess is if he was already on the 40-man, you make that move. But are you willing to drop somebody else just for the sake of bringing him up when you know deep down that's not really an answer to anything in the long term?
You can always email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We got this email from Aiden Price. Does it bother you as much as it bothers me that Brady House is basically a platoon player at this point? I know he's not going great, but he's not awful at the plate. He's supposed to be one of the core young pieces to this roster. Making him sit so many games seems irresponsible from the front office or Butera or whoever is making the decision. So Brady House did not start in this game. He is 4th on the Nats in plate appearances, but no, he's not necessarily a definite player game in, game out. He's at 128 plate appearances. For comparison's sake, James Wood is at 171. Daylen Lile is at 155. What do you make of how the team is using Brady House right now?
I think it's an acknowledgement that he has not really, that first 2 weeks, and I wrote about him, how good the plate discipline was, and he looked like a different kind of hitter. He just hasn't been the same guy since then. So I think it starts with that. I think you look at his numbers against right-handers. It's a 163 batting average, 221 on base, 288 slugging for a 508 OPS, 29 strikeouts, and only 6 walks. So that's why you see him often sitting against righties. And let's also point out that defensively has looked kind of shaky here in recent weeks. So I think that's an acknowledgement that he really has not looked all that great. Now, I understand you can look at this and say he's supposed to be part of the long-term plan. Shouldn't you be willing to live with some growing pains and just put him out there, sink or swim, and see what he can do, as opposed to somebody like Jorbit Bibas, who probably is not part of the long-term plan. So I get that, but I think you also have to acknowledge that, is it doing anyone any good to put someone out there if you really don't believe that he's going to have any success? Does that make it even less likely that he's going to figure it out? So I think they're working with him behind the scenes on a lot of stuff, both offensively and defensively. And so they'd rather do that and use those days off to work on that than throw him to the wolves, hope for the best. And when it doesn't go well, maybe that's only making things worse and making it less likely that he's going to figure it out. Yes, in the long run, you want to see more of Brady House, but he's also got to start showing some signs that he's worthy of it. I don't think we're there yet, and I don't think there's really an alternative. But if they were to send somebody down among their young position players, I could see him being at least under consideration at this point. That's where we're at with him right now.
Oh, boy. That would be really tough to take. Dylan Cruz, Robert Hassel III, and Brady House all toiling for AAA-Rochester more than a month into the season. That would be tough to take. Game 2 against the Twins at Nationals Park, Wednesday evening at 6:45. I'm going to be very careful with how I say what I'm about to say. The Nats have listed Miles Mikolas as their probable starting pitcher for the game. So multiple qualifiers in what I just said. The Nats have listed Miles Mikolas as their probable starting pitcher for the game. And Mark, I guess we'll just see if, in fact, an opener, P.J. Poulin, is used in this game.
Well, let's point out the obvious here. P.J. Poulin did not pitch on Monday because it was an off day for the team. And he did not pitch on Tuesday because they didn't need him in the blowout loss. So if they want to go that way, there would certainly be the opportunity to do that and have him open again for Mikolas. I will say Mikolas has been better of late. Not great, but he has been better. He feels better about himself. That doesn't mean that he's all of a sudden going to figure it all out and become, a 5 to 6 inning effective starting pitcher. But the reduced workload has kind of been good for him. And maybe if they feel like the matchups are right, they're actually willing to let him take the mound for the first inning. But if not, P.J. Poulin is fresh and available in case they want to go the opener route again on Wednesday.
All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast.
Payoff pitch, 3-2, swing and a miss. He struck him out with a fastball, and that retires the side. We'll see if that is how the day will end for Jackson Rutledge over 5 innings. He strikes out Acuna, 2 strikeouts in the inning.
Now at McDonald's, a sausage McMuffin is only $1.50. So stop dreaming about breakfast sausage and go get it. Get more value on the under $3 menu.
Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher for delivery.